Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Lab with Librarians, where New Hanover County Schools gets to learn with the best and brightest in school librarianship from around the world. Tonight, we're welcoming Dr. Joyce Valenza, who needs no introduction, so I'm going to let her introduce herself. Thank you, Joyce, for being here tonight.
You're welcome, Jennifer. It's great to be here, and I wish I could see your friends, but I trust that they're there and they're adorable and they're wonderful librarians and eager to learn. And I'm honored that you're spending time with me after school, and I know how precious your time is, especially in April. I'm a librarian. I've been a librarian for 40 years. I've been a special librarian at the Franklin Institute, a science librarian, an indexer. I've been a public librarian. I was a public librarian for 12 years, and I was a school librarian for 25 years. And now I'm at the university, and I'm teaching people to be librarians of all those different types. And so that's my background. But tonight, I'm going to share with you one of my special passions, and that's social media curation. And so I'm going to do a screen share. Let's see if my screen does actually pop up. And I'm going to select that and start my screen share. And I'm going to go into full-blown mode, so I won't see Jennifer either in a minute. Jennifer, can somebody give me a sign that you see my slides?
We do see your slides. We don't see them in presentation view, though. We just see them in the actual...
yes, that's okay. I see them in presentation view. So you know what? Maybe, I'm not sure what to do, but maybe it's best... Maybe I won't show them in presentation. How do you see them now?
It's okay. We see them within the PowerPoint, and you know that happened to us last time with Heather Moorfield-Lang. She couldn't get the presentation view to show either. So it's fine. We managed, didn't we, guys? Yeah. So we're good.
I'm going to stretch it a little bit. Maybe that'll help. How's that?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, all right. So that's the topic of my talk tonight, and I wanted to just let you know, I don't know if this is going to go, yeah, it's switching. Okay, I can see it now. All right, so I did with two of my colleagues, Brenda Boyer and Della Curtis, we did a library tech report, which is now available for free, actually, about social media curation around the library world. When I was in school, I got the kids so excited about social media curation that they actually created a musical for me. So I'll just play the opening part of that for you for now. Okay, that's enough of that for now. But they were pretty excited about it, so I just wanted you to get excited about it too. So we're going to talk tonight about why we should curate, and we're also going to talk about the tools with which we curate and the various affordances they have and how to make some selections. We'll also talk briefly about the connection between curation and a bunch of other movements we're seeing in schools, like how are we responding to the situation where kids really have a lot of mobile. And there was a Pew study that came out this week that really talked about the prevalence of mobile devices with young people from 13 to 18. So you might want to take a look at that. It's connected to the flipped classroom model as well. So we'll look at that as we think. One thing I realized is that, at least in my mind, this is not optional. Curation is something a librarian and actually to some degree classroom teachers need to do. And I'm going to give you an argument in each of these categories. So I believe curation is the new search, and maybe you're not seeing the full screen there anymore, so I think I need to minimize a little bit. Okay, that might be better. Curation is a new search tool. Curation can be used effectively as a learning tool. Curation, and we may not focus on this so much, but it is a tool for social scholarship. If any of you are involved in university courses, then you may see some movement in that direction. Curation helps form community, and curation helps present you as an information leader, as a community leader. So actually, there's some more arguments I want to make. Curation scales your practice. curation is also a personal knowledge management tool. So I hope you're all with me. It's hard not seeing an audience, but I'll forge ahead. So in the old days, books were our only brand, and that is, of course, is not true anymore. Even books on their own come in 100 glorious different formats, and so we need to think about how we're harnessing their power and presenting them. And I think one of the issues we have right now is that we have so many different entry points for our collection. If you think about how your users come into your collection, they may come into your databases separately. They may come into your catalog separately. They may enter your ebooks separately. There may be some websites that you have for lessons. And these present some really serious problems for the user if we don't curate and make sense of that. So I see us moving from a situation where we need to think about the user, and we're moving from a point at which the user entered our collection only from the Dewey Decimal classification system into another kind of system where we're looking at digital collection curation. So so that's how we move. And so another little video, but I'm going to play the whole thing. I think that was the same. Forgive me. We'll move on to another part of that in a minute. So a lot of people think about, oh, this is the one I wanted to play.
Must aggregate the content, pull together knowledge, harness all the feeds, and must make sense of media types and text, keeping learners up to date at school.
That's enough of that. So you heard a few words in that little ditty, and one of them was aggregation. And the way people are looking at curation is in a form of a taxonomy. This is sort of the way my closets look, and this is an aggregation. It's just a jumbled putting together of a lot of stuff. Many of us have what we call collections, and they're very, very neat. But if you think about this collection, as wonderful it has been for so many years, you can't put an RSS feed in there. You can't put a digital story in here. And so we need some new strategies for organizing what we have. And so we're looking at curation. There are a whole bunch of definitions for curation. This is a bundler, which is a curation tool, and the hero of the social media curation movement aggregated or curated this stuff. And this is from all fields of knowledge, people talking about what social media curation looks like. And a lot of them don't actually have the notion of vetting that librarians bring to the process. And I think that's an important thing to look at. So I'm asking, if you were in an audience, I could see you, I'd ask you if you decided you yourself was you were a curator, and I would give you the example of the best curator I know, and actually maybe not the best, but the iconic, and this is Albert Barnes. And if you have been to Philadelphia, you may have seen his collection, which was recently moved from the suburbs, maybe about 3 years ago, to Center City, Philadelphia. And Barnes, although he created a museum, was also creating a school when he sent his emissaries out early in the 1900s to collect Impressionist art. He sent them all over Europe and bought stuff up before it was popular. And then what he did in his space was he did not put one piece behind a velvet theater rope with lots of lights on it. He put all these masterpieces, as you can see in this image. He put a Renoir next to a Van Gogh, next to, I'm imagining a Matisse, I can't see these, but because he wanted to make some juxtapositions and comparisons, and he wanted the placement of these objects to be instructional in themselves. So how do we look, for instance, at the shape of a woman's body, or how do different artists use the color orange? And so it was the piecing together of these wall ensembles and the context that was created that was the important thing to Dr. Barnes. And we are doing that in our own way. Imagine how you could put 2 books or 3 books together and create a text set in a way that we never were able to do that before. Or you too can put pieces of masterpieces together with context to create comparison. So this is not a dream, this is so real. And I'm gonna skip a few slides because I wanna get to some of the models and some of the examples. So you can see that there's a whole bunch of models. This is Sally Wilson's about the notion of filtering and then sharing. So you're gathering, collecting, filtering, storing, and sharing. There's a bunch of other models, and these slides will be available to you, and I'll make sure that you have some links. But just so you see that this is, people have been thinking about this, there's a theory behind it. But in most cases, people think that curation is not valuable unless you add context to the process. When Brenda and I thought about it, and we did a survey, these were the words that librarians came up with. And this is the taxonomy that they suggested: collecting, connecting, curating, and contributing to a community. Building social capital along the way, although that might not have been the initial goal. So what are we curating? The Mitchell Caper quote, getting information off the internet is like taking a drink from a fire hydrant, is especially intense in a user-generated world where we've got blogs and image sharing and video sharing. So information is really hard to make sense of. We're collecting in education content that looks like this, and of course, it doesn't fit on our shelves. We're also curating all of this OER stuff and pushing it to teachers in a way that makes sense, because they've got all these portals that they can't manage. They are crazy busy, especially this month. And we can really find the golden nuggets for them and curate that stuff for them out of all these portals. I'm going to skip a few slides. Nancy White created, actually this isn't Nancy's, but I think actually it might be. No, it's Harold Jarkey's, his Seek, Sense, Share model about what activities are present during the curation process. So I want to kind of take you through those arguments that I made earlier. So in terms of search, let's look at what curation means. I believe curation is the new search. And I believe that sometimes we go to Google and our databases, and I believe that we're ignoring some really major platforms that are very, very useful. And so in my LibGuides, when I worked at the high school, this was on my search tool page. I wanted my students to make discoveries and to search in social media curation sites. And so why is that important? Well, there are experts and people who are passionate about subjects who are already separating the wheat from the chaff. There are librarians, for instance, in the LibGuides community. You don't have to have LibGuides, which is a pay service, to make use of the LibGuides community. So imagine you meet a parent whose child was diagnosed with autism. If you were to search autism in Google, you'd get flooded with hundreds of thousands of results, and you may not have the vocabulary to figure out how to manage that to get the stuff you need. But you can see in the LibGuide search that some of these are aimed at parents, and some of these are aimed at researchers, and some of these are aimed at educators. And they've already selected the databases that make sense, the best websites, some of the curation tools about autism. So somebody's already done the work for you, and you can specify your search. I want to see autism results in academic libraries or public libraries or K-12 libraries or special libraries, for instance, medical school libraries. So this is a higher level of search than that Google search. And then if you take it beyond the LibGuides community to a tool like Scoop.it, there are people who are parents for whom this stuff is incredibly important. I don't think this is an autism search, but imagine that it was. There are so many curations on Scoop.it that have to do with autism. And this keeps you up to date. Somebody is every single day curating a little magazine for you on autism. And there are many different takes on it. So you find the ones that you want to follow that are the best. And you might want to curate for other people in these areas. So you're pulling current events for everybody and putting together a customized newspaper and sharing it with the world, making a contribution. This is just another, I think that I can't see this. This is actually the autism search. So you see that it has, people are doing it in a law context, in an education context, in a parental context. Other sites like that are Paperly, and you can create these wonderful little newspapers about a subject of interest. And examples of autism in Paperly are some of these. And you can look at credibility in terms of who is the curator there. Is it a mother? Is it a doctor? And sometimes an expert who is not a PhD might be the very right expert for you. Curation as a learning activity as well. You can curate with kids. And I hope this plays well because it's one of my favorite quotes. This is Howard Rangold, one of my favorite social media experts. And I don't know that it's going to play. Let me see if I can do this outside. And he's talking to a collective intelligence scholar, Pierre Levy, and I'm going to try to play it in the background. And he says that there's a new term for this. It's loading.
We say that today everybody becomes an author, for example. Or everybody becomes an editor or a publisher. And I think that we should stress also that everybody is becoming a specialist in library science, because when you categorize some information, you do it for yourself to organize your memory, but at the same time, you organize the memory for others. Every time that you create a link, every time that you put a tag, you are organizing the common memory. So you exercise the role of the keeper of a library. So this is a very new thing, and I think that the question of categorization is very important.
It sounds like
we should do it in a conscious way.
It sounds like you're talking about something for which we don't really have a word yet. That's kind of like a knowledge citizen.
That's it. Yes.
So
the citizen of the knowledge society.
So I love that. I think that I'm hoping that you're still on my slides. Are you? You still see my slides?
Yeah, we're here. We gotcha.
Okay, good. So, because I've been going from one place to the next. So I think that students can be curators, and what we're doing is teaching them to be citizens of a knowledge society.
That 10-mile free ring binder really helped all my school stuff. I know by now that binder can't contain my research. Student.
All right, so I'm not going to play the entire beautiful song, but I think students need new strategies. And I used to go around to the classes that we'd visit, and I would pick up their 3-ring binders, and I'd say, just like those shelves were inadequate, these are inadequate containers for your research. They can't contain an RSS feed. They can contain your YouTube videos, which we know are avenues for learning. They are inadequate. Students need better storage containers for their research. And so happily, there are so many of them, and we'll look at some of them in a minute, but let's just see. So why should we curate with students? Because we want to maximize those new open education resources. We develop digital literacies with them, the things that are not on the test. These are skills that help students detect crap and determine relevance. I have had students start curating in areas in which they had numbers of followers, and so they were finding a niche of knowledge that they were leading in. For them to learn that there are many different ways to search beyond Google, and that they can learn on their own using some exciting new strategies, and that even a kid can be a guide to information. Laura Pearl, who's a librarian in New York, says that if we can teach our students to curate rather than merely collect information, they become better evaluators of resources, better researchers and writers. And this is Nancy White, a librarian in Colorado, who's come up with this a kind of matrix of the skills that learners develop as they're curating. She's done some wonderful writing on curating in the classroom. So just examples are curating the images of poster sessions or science fairs. Is anybody doing that at your school? Is anybody collecting that knowledge? Is anybody collecting in any strong way the digital stories that students are telling and putting them in anthologies? Do you have portfolio strategies? Google Sites is one strategy. Many more sites are coming up that'll help. ByteSlide, EduClipper, these are all portfolio strategies. Your scanner, your camera is a powerful tool. Or if you have scanning software on your apps on your phone or your iPads or whatever you're using, these are ways that you can get kids to take responsibility for scanning their good work and helping put together either their own personal portfolios, curating them, or curating knowledge that's being collected around the school. One new app that we've been playing with is called Seesaw, and it's really it's just so elegant and so easy, and it puts the onus on learners to curate their own work, and they can reflect on their work using voice, video, or text. Super easy. And another one maybe for older students, so this I think works for everybody, is Easy Portfolio. I'm going to skip a few slides. I've had students successfully curate with Paperly and Scoop It. In fact, one of my students back in the old days was Tenzin, and she came from Tibet and had to leave as an immigrant and put together a newspaper in Tibetan on Free Tibet and was getting a significant audience. So the kids can feel very proud of these efforts. We've also had kids curate textbooks. In this case, the American history textbook ended at chapter, 37 with the Clinton presidency, and they couldn't afford to buy textbooks this year. So we put the onus on students to figure out what happened after that. So they had to create chapters 38, 39, and 40. And each of those chapters was rich with media and better than any of the chapters in the physical textbook they had, because they weren't homogenized. They had points of view. They had media. They took a specific interest. Some were more focused on women. Some had more to do with economics. Some had more to do with the environment. The synthesis of these chapters was a very rich learning experience. The teacher loved this activity, and it was led by me and a number of the social studies teachers. Archiving student work is important. When the kids do presentations, I embed their presentations everywhere. When we were trying to get over PowerPoint, Death by PowerPoint, one student did The Adventures of Super Presentation Man for me, and I embedded that pretty much everywhere. I still use it at the university, but there was a great pride that those kids felt because their work was not just done and thrown out. It was embedded throughout our curation efforts, and it was embedded into a lot of classroom websites and Moodles as well. So Dave Lurcher talks about the virtual learning commons, and he has some models set up for this in terms of assignments, and I encourage you to take a look at that. He's got some templates, and this is largely for student work. Curation also helps form community. Just using the TL chat hashtag and gathering the stuff that you form around that is an important community building activity. In terms of leadership, when you're curating, you're sharing your work with hashtags, and that helps build the community. The intersection of each of our communities is very different. Mine is the higher ed community, the education community, the library community, and so I'm reaching things, and Jennifer's hitting the folks in North Carolina, and I'm hitting the folks in Pennsylvania, New Jersey. So we all have different intersections. We're all sharing in a different way, but we're all building communities and networks, and I think that's important. And I know I have a limited time, so I'm not gonna show you these videos, but I think it's powerful that this is a wonderful article from Wired that shared, when we curate, we're enhancing a connection in the global neural network we're inadvertently creating. And so this is a powerful side product of digital curation. In terms of community, one experience that I think has been the iconic one for me was I had a friend who had a brain tumor, and Nikki asked me to gather content that she couldn't because it was in Elsevier journals and behind firewalls. And I was sending black market articles out of these things that I was doing in searches. I didn't even understand the language, but the people who were suffering from these illnesses actually know the medical language. And so I was doing, I thought, a good job. But when I went to Nikki's funeral, this guy, Jeff, came up to me and he said, "Thank you for what you were doing. But I want you to know I was contributing too." And so what Jeff was doing was he'd set up the right keywords from the right sources and the right RSS feeds. And so he created this daily brain tumor news and tweets. And he was also feeding that community with the life and death information that they needed. And there's an example of how we can help create citizens for students who are not necessarily going to be librarians, but we can train them to be leaders and experts and to make a difference. And so that's what I think we're moving towards. So these are the curating efforts that I do in Scoop It to help build community. I haven't been as good lately as I used to be, but I hope to get back to it. And Twitter, as I said before, is also a curation tool. I'm going to skip the social scholarship thing because I think that's more important at the academic level, the university level. But I just want, if any of you are at the university getting a master's or a PhD, these are things that you might want to think about as you build a network at the university level. Because there's a lot of curation that's going on in the field of altmetrics, which is pushing out the old notions of promotion and tenure and how we measure that. I also think that this work scales your practice. So if you are moving among 2 or 3 libraries and you're exhausted, creating one website that can be your instructional presence is something that this work can do. And so I did a lot of my curation in LibGuides, and you can see my instruction was all out there. And so when we were too busy for me to be at every classroom, the teachers would often say, "Well, you recorded a lesson, you did this flip thing, and it's all there, and you combined it with my lesson plan and my rubric, and we worked on this together. So don't worry, Joyce, you don't need to be here every minute physically. Your instructional voice is here." And you can do this on a bunch of different platforms. These are just some of my LibGuides. And the other thing I want you to know is that you don't only need to do this for others. You can do it to for personal knowledge management, to make sense of your own information needs, to keep up with the things that you find important. So I urge you to read Howard Jarkey's personal knowledge management models. So these are things that I'm thinking that we can do. We can create dashboards, and I'll talk more about what they look like and how to do this. But they're for our own needs and as well as for the needs of others. And the example I give for my own needs is this one. I had a bad haircut after Hurricane Sandy, and I didn't have the skills to curate at that point. So I went to the hairdresser, and I had the magazines on the table, and I couldn't find anything that was like really good for curly hair. And so I asked the hairdresser to just get rid of all the tangles and the mess that I had because I hadn't showered in over a week. And so this is really maybe TMI, but after that it occurred to me.
Oh, we love it, Joyce. More about it.
All right. Well, thanks for that reassurance. But after that I thought, oh my goodness, what if every hairdresser across the world had Pinterest boards, not only for styles, but for colors? And what if they showed their very best work? And what if, we could have this 3-dimensional thing of the photographs that they took, and we could really see what the possibilities were, and we could see what the skills of each of these hairdressers were. And I've seen this now in menus. Now you can really look at iPad menus, Pinterest boards and whatever of foods and things. But these are really things that I think are important. And if I found a hairdresser who would do this for me, I'd be pretty impressed. But in any case, I now take my iPad with me if I meet a new hairdresser. So what are some of the tools that we can use? And I'll go through these kind of quickly. This is just a list of some of them. And I'm going to kind of give you this metaphor. So I think that what we need to do is figure out where our parking lot is. And the parking lot could be your LibGuide, your wikis, your Wix or Weebly sites, your Moodles, whatever the big thing is. And then into that parking lot, you're going to move I don't know if the animation didn't show. Imagine that the cars actually moved into the parking lot. But they do. So you're moving in, you're embedding all of these other platforms. So the user only sees the one big parking lot, but you know what you're pulling in. And you're piecing together this kind of puzzle of the platforms that you're using, and you're choosing these platforms for their affordances, for what they do well and how you might use them. I did an article on this for Voya a little while back, and it's easy to get to. And, you know, in terms of apps, I call this app smashing. How are you creating, this is a whole bunch of mixed metaphors, dashboards or palettes so that the user doesn't have to make 100 different decisions and is overwhelmed, but you're pulling together the choices in a particular area for the tools and the resources, and maybe putting together a reference shelf. There's so many opportunities for librarians to put these dashboards or palettes together. So I'll go through some of these options. And these are, Robin Good has put together hundreds of tools for you, but I'm going to try to make sense of these. These are still Robin's work. So I think there's some tools that are these slow tools for archiving, and then I think there's some tools that are like the things that have to do with current awareness or fast stuff. So let's go through the faster stuff first. And just one thing to be aware of, all of these fast tools, you don't have to be inside the tool to use them, because all of them present the opportunity for you to grab a bookmarklet, put it on your toolbar for your browser, and then wherever you are, you can send the content you discover directly to that stuff. And so what we're doing right now is recognizing that people are not reading a newspaper from cover to cover. They're ungluing the newspaper. If it were a record album, they'd be ungluing the record album, and they're pulling together the pieces that they either need or like to make an idiosyncratic palette of stuff that makes sense for them. So if it were me, I would throw out the sports section every day, but I'd put together the other pieces that I need. We don't need to buy the whole paper anymore. And the same thing is true with a record album. Some of you may not have seen that. So one of the tools you can use is Flipboard, which is now an app, but it's also a website. And I've seen people put together, librarians put together an environmental magazine for the environmental class. And it updates every day. And the stuff is coming from National Geographic, from the New York Times environment pages, from blogs. And every day it refreshes and becomes a beautiful magazine for your science class that can be embedded in the science teacher's Moodle or anywhere. And there are so many beautiful examples of this that you can see. You can also embed other people, so you don't have to make your own. But there are beautiful Flipboards out there that would benefit loads and loads of students. I'm going to skip through. Scoop It is one example I've already given you. And there's just, again, you can embed other people's Scoop Its or create your own. Here's an example of a Scoop It that's on the Flip Classroom. Here's mine on curation. Paperly is another example. Here's one on media literacy and appreciative inquiry. Not sure exactly what that is, but a friend of mine asked me about it. TL Chat, I created that. It refreshes. I need to take more care of that and finesse it a little bit. Common Core, Carolyn Starkey does that, that newsletter, and so you can keep up to date on news relating to Common Core. Loads of that. And honestly, some of these can just be fan-based. Like there are students who are creating Game of Thrones newspapers. And basically you're making, these are really information literacy activities, because if you had to choose the 10 feeds that you most think are the best, what would you choose? That is the best credibility lesson I've ever heard. So it's like the whole, I wish for 3 more wishes. So I wouldn't choose to follow one individual. But if I were looking at cancer again, I'd look at the American Cancer Society or Cancer News, not one individual. I'd make the maximum of the feeds that were coming in. These are great activities for high school students. A new one is Sponge, and so these are all kind of the magazine-y types. Pinterest is something we're going to look at, but somebody has gone through, Teach Bytes went through and looked at what kinds of learning can happen through a Pinterest project relating to Bloom's taxonomy. I love the way some librarians are using Pinterest. Alita Hansen has at Weston High School, and that's in Massachusetts, has the best genre boards I've ever heard of. And her students take their iPads over to the shelves with her genre boards and look for this stuff. She's got her AP fiction reading, AP history fiction reading on there, and the teachers absolutely adore it. I've done a couple of blog posts about her. These are just some boards on media literacy I was using for a conference. And this is an activity I gave to student volunteers to keep up with what's going on in our own high school community, because no one else was pinning the local newspapers, the theater activities, what was going on in football. And this was something the parents really loved to go to. We embedded this in our library website. This is my university reading list. So I have my students choose books, not from a list of links or titles, but for books that are actually connected to the Goodreads reviews. So they make a choice, the annotation is there, but they click on them, they go directly to Goodreads, so they get the reviews of hundreds of other people as well as perhaps my endorsement, and then they go to a Google Doc and choose their the one they've chosen. Pinterest, if you haven't used it for everything, is just fabulous. It's used by major government institutions, and ASCD has all of its major themes up. And Shelley Terrell is one of the best pinners I know, and Eric Sheninger is a fabulous administrator. He's gone to Scholastic, but he pins for principals with these pin boards would just be fabulous. So Bingle is a new tool that's sort of like Pinterest. I don't know if it's getting any traction yet, but just so you know, it's out there. I love Storify as a news activity for students. It is a way to grab all sorts of social media and synthesize it and create a timeline. Everybody is using this, including journalists. There's just, I don't remember why I chose this one, but it's there. This one is about the Olympics. It told the story of Sochi. Here's the way that journalists put together the news on Hurricane Sandy, presidential election. So you're pulling across social media to synthesize a story. This was my trip to IASL in 2012-ish. That I pulled all the media together. So I had a little report of my experience. And again, one container wouldn't have worked. I had to choose this container because it presented the right affordances, the timeline, the media. It allowed me to collect tweets. But I'm not the only one doing this. The White House is using Storify. So you're using tools that are used by real people and real organizations. This is Rebel Mouse, and you can set Rebel Mouse out to be your own kind of new business card, because what I'm doing across social media is collected in my Rebel Mouse page. So we were honored to have Howard Rangel visit our class, and so this was on my page. I was really excited about it, but I'm not the only one. So Pointer uses Rebel Mouse to collect stuff around themes like the fiscal cliff a while back ago. And Huffington Post and Pointer also use Rebel Mouse to aggregate the stuff that they've been writing about and tweeting about. So some of the slow tools to know about. One of them is this is a great tool by Marcia Martis at Florida State. And it points to this new notion that collection is not what you own, but what you use, what you point to, and what you make discoverable. So with this tool, you can get any website that you find, or even sets of websites, pop some information in there, including just the URL, and it will generate a MARC record that you can send directly to your catalog. And you can make it locally relevant if you want. And it will actually pull down Common Core descriptors and links, so it'll be aligned, and it'll also align to Dewey numbers if you want. So this combats the silo issue that I was talking about earlier with multiple ways to get into your collection. So you can even make your LibGuides part of you can make MARC records for those. Another tool that you should be aware of is the discovery services that most universities are using. And I was beginning to use the high school. So now I know that not all of you are high school librarians, but be aware that that the discovery platform is out there, where we're moving towards a one search box across our databases, our catalog, ebooks, and everything. So the onus of the instruction now is, how do I make use of the faceted search tools after I do my initial search box? And then you can teach that filtering process afterwards. But your kids are going to hit this in the university. So and I love this, I love the EBSCO Discovery Service because everything was there, and theoretically the rising tide would float all boats. So these less discovered databases might come into their discovery because they would come across them. So we could do a whole lecture on discovery services. Another thing you can do with curation is develop learning playlists. I use lesson paths a lot. In fact, I have, for each of my university courses for each week, instead of doing a reading list, I do a playlist. And so these things just pop up as the articles. If they don't have to log into EBSCO once they've done it once, the articles just pop up. I can import PDFs, I can import quizzes and discussions. I can put a Google Doc in there, a Google survey, a Google form, I can put my own PowerPoints in there. And then I can put at the end a little formative assessment. What did you learn? And I can get the feedback from this learning playlist. And this is what it looks like under the hood. And these are collaborative. You can make them with other people. Blend space, another good strategy for sequencing instruction and lists of websites that you want students to discover. In fact, when I was on my way to TLA, one of my grad students decided that I needed a refresher. I was kind of not sure how to two-step, and she created a playlist for me so I could relearn how to two-step. I was really good at it when I was at UNT, but then I forgot because I got rusty. We were able to put we used Blend Space, or EdCanvas as it used to be called, for the best websites for AASL. And Learnist is another way to just curate instructional content, and it pulls from a website called Guru with open educational resources. These are fabulous ways. You don't have to use all of these. I know I'm overwhelming you, but just pick one or two. They'll all be there. I have lists of these things, the ones that you find the most useful. Here's an example of a lesson, these Lauren Scott, but this is like, you can use it with health teachers, how to pitch. These are instructional materials too that people ignore, and you don't have to make them all. You can find other people's Learnists and embed them on the health teachers' websites. But for me, I've been using a number of things. I'm beginning to use Pearl Trees, but lately I've been using Symbaloo. So each one of these tiles this is my index to all of the stuff that I've been collecting on a variety of different platforms. So I make these in PicMonkey and other tools, and then these all lead to curations that I've been leading my grad students to. And so this is one of my grad students' search tool Symbaloos, so because she wants her kids to go to certain search tools. And this is a curation Symbaloo for librarians. And Shannon Miller is a good friend of both me and Jennifer, and she's been really pushing Symbaloo. And once the kids open these on their iPads, they kind of look like iPad stuff, and even though they're going to websites, they feel like apps. So this is hers on 3D printing, and she's done them for each grade. And these are not just apps. They don't lead just to apps or websites. They also lead to the Google Docs the kids need. So if there is a template that you want them to use to word process on, it'll lead to that Google Doc or that form or that PowerPoint. So you can put together this whole dashboard for kids, and you're modeling how they would do it themselves. I love EdShelf. I'm sorry?
Can I just interrupt you for 1 second? I want to point out my folks real quick that there's a video that Shannon made that is linked on our resource page for, the homepage that kids land on when they go to your Destiny, that some of you will just say, like, it says welcome to Blair Elementary School. I've put that video that shows you how to embed Symbaloos right there. So if you have a Symbaloo on any research tools or whatever, and you don't want to have to keep directing kids to different Symbaloos, you can embed them right to your Destiny page. They already know how to get there, and they're right there on the home page. Okay, I'm sorry, I just wanted to.
That's okay. So your Destiny page doesn't have to be an advertisement for Destiny. It can be really a dashboard. I put my LibGuides dashboard there. Again, what we're talking about is that parking lot. So if Destiny is the go-to place, if that's where they land, if that's your landing page, make that real estate really valuable. Figure out what should be there. That's a big decision. So what I do, this one I use, this is EdShelf, and it almost disappeared, but I'm glad It didn't. This is what I use for professional development because it doesn't go to websites, it goes to apps. And each of these, if you click on this is Curation Tools. It'll either go to the website or the app review, depending upon how you created it. And it automatically creates a QR code. So people can go directly, if they come into your professional development session, they can scan that and go directly to your ed shelf. And this is great for parents. You can create these for parent night. These are the resource tools I want to see on your kids' iPads. We'll talk more about that in a sec. I'm going to have to go fast. So these are some of my digital storytelling ed shelves. And then this one's for instruction that is sequenced. So if this is Tilde, which I love, step 1, step 2, step 3. I've shown this to science teachers, and they've created lab instruction using Tilde. And my students have created these too. Unfortunately, it's not embeddable. That's the one downside to Tilde. I'm going to skip through a few of these because I think there's some duplication and I want to get to some things at the big ending. These are just examples of other LibGuides that I thought were useful. And I use LibGuides also as a portfolio tool. My kids, we did poetry slams as a regular activity, and I thought the poetry was really private. And the kids said, Dr. Valenza, why don't we archive our poetry? Well, they were all shooting video of it. And I said, I thought this was kind of personal stuff. And they said, oh no, we want Grandma and Grandpa to see this. And so they actually created a full archive of our poetry slams. Now there are tools like poster tools, like some more, and there's Sway. There's 100 new ones coming out now. I'm just blanking out on one that I discovered. Adobe Slate is another new one. But these can be used in a variety of different ways. So some more I use for posters and invitations and events. But I love the way Shannon's using this as a curation tool. So over the Christmas break, what she did was she created a 12 days of Christmas some more. So for each day, she had a different activity for the kids to do at home relating to learning or technology. And I thought that was fabulous. For me, this is my copyright-friendly lesson. I use it all the time, and it's actually a 3-day lesson that I've curated in a some more, and it has video, it has lists of links, and it has activities. And this one's been seen by thousands of people and used and embedded by lots and lots of people. All right, so Livebinders is another choice. It's not the one I use most, but and I think if I didn't have LibGuides, I probably would use this, but it's kind of similar in its tab approach. It has a notebook tab approach, easily embeddable, loads of people. This may be, I can't remember who this is. This is Classroom 2.0. These are all embeddable, so you can grab each of these notebooks and put them on your own sites. Common Core Livebinders are just some examples. Just some other examples of what they look like. And I know Jaquetta Johnson makes great use of Livebinders. All right, so I have to kind of go through quickly. Some of these are not as important as others, but you can explore them on your own. Pearl Trees has changed recently, and I'm absolutely in love with it. Michelle Ludala is using it to curate all of her EdWeb webinars with all their links, and it is just a great, beautiful organization tool that is embeddable. As you can see, there's the embed signal there, and they're also collaborative, so you can work on these with teachers easily. And these are just some examples of what Pearl Trees look like. All of these are websites. They can be annotated. Just a very easy interface. Another good one is Themify. I'm going to go quickly through. Themify creates these beautiful magazines that have sequenced websites. So Adobe Slate is that new one, and Sway. And I'm going to skip to the end and kind of we're moving towards the end. So we're curating not only for websites, but we're also curating for mobile. And we ought to, like, I contend that kids have not the stuff they should have in their pockets. So we deserve, they could have a full library in their pocket, not just their favorite games. I think every kid deserves it. We're paying money for resources, and they should have these things on their tablets and their phones. And so it's not that hard to get freeware to create an app. This is what my students use, something called Go Local, to create an app for a library. And all of these things are the websites that we have right now are really, I'm forgetting the word for it, but they make them so things that work on things work well on any screen. If you have LibGuides, it's $200 extra to get the LibGuides app making tool, but there are definitely free tools out there for making apps. There are a lot of your websites have app making tools. Mac and Via will pull all of your content. It won't search across the content, but the Mac and Via app is brilliant. It pulls all your content together into an app, and one password is all you need. And then you get into, you can see there's my JSTOR, my ABC Clio, all of my stuff. Once the kids log in once, was available on the Mac and Via app across all of their screens. Love it, and it's free. All you have to do is buy one book from Mac and Via, and they'll do it for you. Other apps that are useful are that you also Teen Book Finder, which my kids used to take to shelves with them all the time. You can search, you can see by genre, title, whatever. Okay, so I'm making the case now, taking it home. I think that as librarians, we need to contribute, make a difference, and lead the way in terms of curation. Are there issues relating to curation? Absolutely. You can over curate, you can go nuts. There's the notion of being a digital hoarder. This is Kristen Swanson's post. You need to credit when you curate. And photographers have taken down some of their best work because other people were putting them up and not attributing. You can curate in one area of knowledge and be biased. There is a filter bubble when we search, and there can be a filter bubble in curation efforts too. And you may only be seeing one side if you choose to follow one person. And if you see my work, you'll see librarians are the best people in the universe, but other people might have a different opinion. They'd be wrong, but they might. There are good and bad curation strategies. And so think about, are you doing it well? But I think that right now, this is a great time to get out there, to create, make meaning, and solve problems for your community. And I hope that what you're thinking about right now is, what will you curate for your own community this year? And I have an ending thing. I hope it's okay to play this.
Curator, build me a match. Gather the fees so I can cash. Media, blog posts, and tweets that make sense, and makes me a perfect match. Curator, so much to read. Google installs me with more than I need. I'm seeking relevance, so I must be where human touch intimacy. Or let it be solidly me well. I want the feast to keep me current with fashion or pauses for which I can take the lead. Curator, give me new tools so I can learn curating rules. Like underscore if I scoop it and scroll any new research tools. So please, make it dynamic. I don't need the same old rehash. I rely on your knowledge and passion to open the news inside. Curator, demonstrate mash. Use networking skills to help us in school. We discover the big picture view to manage new info search tools.
So, let's see. So these are some of my indexes. I'm moving to Pearl Trees, as I said, but you're welcome to use any of those. And I have not updated this presentation, but a month-old version of that is available here. And you might want to take a picture of the slide. Or Jennifer, can you share that later? And I'm going to replace the old presentation with a new one. I just didn't have a chance to do that today because I was updating last night.
No, I'll take care of it. No problem.
All right, and give me a couple of days to get the new one up. I'm sorry. So let me show. Is it okay if I go back to my feed?
Yeah.
Okay. Got to go find the Hangout. Oops. Okay. Camera back on. Stop sharing. Okay. Here I am. Hi.
There you are. Thank you so much. You're getting out a full 3 minutes early, which is not, I think, enough time for you to get to your class. I
Well,
think
yeah, it's
200
not far. So.
That's got to be a record, right?
No, not really.
Well,
No, I've got to go to a student meeting and then I'm going to class, but I better prep for it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, y'all. I know we're going to have some questions and stuff, but I will send those on to you, okay?
All right. So Jennifer, it was great to meet you all. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Good night.
Bye. Good night.